Hey everyone, welcome to the latest episode of Tech Bytes Takeover, or as I like to call it, Between Two Geese. I'm Tyler Jurgens. Along with me is my favorite person, Matt Crape. Matt, what are we going to talk about today?
Favorite person, I am honored with that status. Thank you very much, Tyler. We've got a jam-packed episode today. In case you missed it somehow, Veeam Data Platform v13.1 dropped. It is out. Hundreds, thousands of people have downloaded it. It's out in the wild, and there is so much in there that we're focusing this entire episode on lots of the goodness that's in there. So what do we have? We're going to cover three major capabilities that you absolutely need to know about that shipped with 13.1. Two capabilities that may have flown under the radar. Maybe you didn't quite catch them if you didn't go through line by line and read the What's New doc. We're going to go through one hand-picked collection of features for our VCSP friends out there, as well as set you up with one resource to make sure that your upgrade is smooth and successful, all with leaving you with zero regrets for tuning in. So Tyler, I mentioned we've got this jam-packed episode, so let's hop right into it. We're going to talk about the three major capabilities that you really ought to know about that shipped with 13.1. So what's top of mind for you?
Well, Matt, one of the big things we brought out is that expanded hypervisor coverage. So we brought in quite a few new hypervisors in with 13.1. We've got Sangfor, we've got XCP&G and Zen Server, we've got Verge.io, Platform 9, as well as Red Hat OpenShift virtualization. So when we're looking at the different hypervisors, we've got quite a bit of capability here that we packed right into the version 1 of these plugins that we add. So, we want to dig in a little bit here. Let's look, you can see the chart here. We've got a bunch of different capabilities. The big one is that cross-platform recovery. So you can recover wherever you are to these platforms to make sure that you're able to get that data portability that you need for your business. So if you are reevaluating your hypervisor strategy, we've got that with you. I mean, obviously, Matt, we're able to back up the workloads on there. I think that's kind of key. We want to make sure that's able to be done. But backups aren't the only thing you need. You need to be able to recover that, so you can recover back to the platform. You can recover somewhere else. And Matt, I know we've got quite a bit of collection here. I think we have somewhere up to like 95% of the hypervisors on the market today.
Well, that's it. This release has really expanded on what you've seen Veeam doing, over the last little while. Let's face it, there's been a real shift in the hypervisor market, right? People are looking all over the place. There is no clear winner when it comes to folks looking to migrate away from something like VMware. And that's kind of where we're positioning ourselves. We want to make sure that we continue partnering with you, the customer, wherever you wind up. So you get to keep using the same tools, the same infrastructure, same storage, and frankly, for a lot of you folks out there, the same skill sets that you're used to today. You don't need to learn a new tool. So Tyler, like you mentioned, with this edition, we cover something like 95% of all the major hypervisors out there. Now, why is that important? You kind of touched on it, that data portability aspect, but there's also the aspect around maybe you decide that you're going to move to one of these new hypervisors, and maybe after 3, 4, 5 months, things just aren't quite right. Well, guess what? You can still take that data, restore it to one of these other hypervisors. So it's really about expanding the breadth and choice of where you want to go. Now, we're also introducing with these hypervisors kind of like a baseline level of support. As you mentioned, it's not just your basic backup. There's a lot of capabilities here, things like instant recovery capabilities back to cross platforms, similarly backup copy jobs and so forth. Now, one thing that is worth mentioning is when it comes to OpenShift, that will be coming a little bit later. So, stay tuned for that. That's just around the corner. But something else that we want to highlight here was also these native integrations versus what we have, which is called the Universal Hypervisor API. Now, Tyler, why don't you give us a quick, high-level overview of what the Universal Hypervisor API is?
Yeah, Matt, I love the Universal Hypervisor API. It allows us and our partners, those hypervisor vendors out there that, are looking to get support with Veeam, they're able to talk to our alliance partners and make sure that they can provide that integration. So if you have a hypervisor that you know and love and you're looking to use and it's not quite in our list of supported hypervisors yet, go talk to them. Reach out to your sales team with that hypervisor and say, hey, I really want you to reach out to Veeam. Get involved with their Universal Hypervisor API program, and you can get uh, compatibility with them very quickly. It's a way for us to rapidly onboard these other hypervisors, and comes with a base level of feature capability that they can build in right away, right? So it's a very quick, rapid way of getting those new workloads. It's amazing. And if you're out there and you are looking at a different hypervisor, what hypervisor are you looking at? Send us a comment, leave us a note. We're happy to answer all this live on air. This is why we do it. We want to honk at you live. So come drop your notes in there. Talk to us. Let's see, let's get this conversation flowing. But Matt, I think there was a webinar you did recently as well.
Well, actually, the webinar for the OpenShift was done by someone else on our team at Dupe. So we'll actually get a link dropped in there, basically showing some of the capabilities that are coming with the OpenShift integration. So if this is something that's of interest to you, make sure you go check it out, register for it. There's some great demos in there, so you'll actually see what you'll be able to gain with this integration. So we've talked about hypervisors, right? Veeam is known for its breadth of hypervisor support, and we've absolutely just kind of doubled down on that again with this release. But that's not all that's actually really come with this release. We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about threat detection, particularly how it's expanded and what you can do. So I think the most noteworthy mention is the fact that now with the NAS backup, the unstructured data backup, we actually give you the capability to detect threats as part of those backup jobs, as well as before you restore, to make sure that you're not restoring the ransomware or any other threats. So Tyler, why don't you walk us through what we're looking at here when it comes to threat detection for NAS?
Absolutely, Matt. So we've got a lot of great features, like you said, brought in there. We've got that NAS threat detection. So when we jump into this Veeam backup replication web UI, we're getting more and more features into there. One of the new features is this NAS detection. So when we take a look at this overview, this quick dashboard, it gives you that quick look at what is going on in your environment. And if we scroll down a little bit here, Matt, we got a couple incidents. So let's see what this involves. Like, what happened here? And I'm going to blame Matt because I'm pretty sure he set this up. So we can see we've got some, indicators of compromise. We got some malware events here. So, let's see if we can find some details on what is going on. Sure enough, you can see we've got, on our file share, just a simple SMB file share, we've got some suspicious files. We've seen there's a looks like an rclone exe here, so that can be used for data exfiltration. As you can see, it's one of our indicators of compromise. So this is not necessarily meaning we are compromised or that there is a malicious program here, but it is a program that can often be used in a malicious way. It's a fine line between, is this a bad program and is this program used to do bad things? Right? And this is where we are uncovering it. If you want more details, you can dig into the log files directly, just download them from your Veeam software appliance, and away you go. Got extra tips there, Matt?
Yeah, and I love the way you covered that with regards to this is looking at basically the file system indexing, right? So we're able to identify tools that attackers might be using to compromise the environment. They could be legitimate tools. TeamViewer is probably one of the greatest examples out there. But if it's not something that you're expecting in your environment, being able to find this in your environment is a great warning sign of, hey, you know what? You should be investigating this. So this is capability that we've had, for VMs for quite a while, and now it's been expanded to NAS backup. But it's not just NAS backup either. So threat detection has been expanded as well for Proxmox for Azure, as well as for the Veeam agents for Solaris and AIX. So, let's not lose scope of the fact that it's not just NAS and unstructured data that's getting this expanded threat detection. It's actually across the board as well. And when we talk about threat detection, it's important to note that some of these things already existed. For example, Yara scans, antivirus scans, those already existed for, let's say, Azure workloads. But now those Azure workloads are also getting that guest indexing scan that I just talked about. So it's really about providing multiple tools as a way to detect threats in your environment. Hopefully, if they come back, they might be benign, but it really comes down to making sure that you're able to see these signals as soon as possible so that you start reacting. And similarly, when you perform a restore, to help ensure that you're restoring cleanly and not just reintroducing whatever it is that's in the environment. Anything else?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thanks
Yeah,
for bringing
I
that
was going to
perfect
jump
example.
right in there, interrupt you directly in the middle of your chat. That's just how we roll here. You mentioned Yara scans, and as you're talking about this, as we're thinking about the RSMB file shares, how amazing would that be to be able to just run a quick Yara scan against your file share to find anything, right? Maybe it's a malicious file you're trying to find. Maybe you've got hit by ransomware and you're trying to find all those, ransomware extensions. Maybe you're just trying to find that one file that somebody has lost somewhere in their file share. I mean, we've both been there, Matt, where somebody's like, hey, I saved this. Where is it? And you're like, man, let's look, right? So this is the kind of extra tools that we can use to dive into there. But, that's not it for our security enhancements, Matt. We're also talking a bit about hybrid FIPS and, PQC mode. I know you're a big fan of that. Why don't you expand a bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Before we jump into it, I'd love to poll the audience who's watching live. Is PQC, post-quantum cryptography, something that's come up in your role? I know I've had the opportunity to talk to some customers recently, earlier this year, and it's absolutely something that, it's not number one question by any means, but it's a question that's coming up more and more, especially compared to, like, let's say last year, where there was a little bit of buzz about it, but nowhere near the same. So at a high level, if you're not familiar with post-quantum cryptography, pardon me, it's really about making sure that you have some sort of encryption that is strong enough to be resilient against quantum computing, which, a lot of us who have been in IT for a while, I got the gray beard to prove it. We've been hearing about quantum cryptography for a long time, quantum computing. It's always just around the corner. But we're seeing signs that's becoming closer and closer. So it's important to really start planning your PQC strategy. So in short, what is PQC? It's about making sure that your data is encrypted, and that a quantum computer can't easily crack it. So what we're introducing with 13.1 is the ability to leverage PQC as part of the data movers process. So data in flight. So if somebody is eavesdropping in your network, well, guess what? They can't actually listen in. Now, one of the challenges with PQC is that it is not actually part of the FIPS certification. So that's kind of where what Tyler's about to show us, this comes into play. So Tyler, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. So we've got this FIPS compliance. So you can be completely FIPS compliance here. You turn it on, you're going to get prompted for a 4eyes, event to enable that. We're not going to enable it here because we still need to go through the lab here. I don't want to be rebooting in the middle of it. But what this allows you to do is make sure that if you are regulated and you need to have that FIPS compliance, you can turn it on and be 100% FIPS compliant. But the PQC uses newer algorithms that aren't quite recognized as FIPS compliant yet. Maybe they're more secure, but you know how regulations go, you know how standards go. Things take a little bit more time to get in there. So the PQC compliant gives you that, ability to be entirely post-quantum cryptography compliant there, but the FIPS mode allows you to turn that on as well. So we give you that opportunity. You're not reinstalling anything to get there either, which is amazing. But, Matt, one thing I want to bring up, when we're talking about post-quantum cryptography, our data is still quantum resilient, isn't it? At rest?
Absolutely. And that was going to be my skill testing question for you, right? So this is important to note. We're talking about data in flight here as it relates to the 13.1 release. But data at rest is encrypted with AES 256, assuming you turn encryption on, which you should. And what that means is it's quantum resilient as it is. Now, that's not to say 10, 15, 20 years down the line that might change, but for the immediate future, if you're using our encryption to encrypt your backups to keep them safe from data exfiltration, basically people who shouldn't have access to it, that is safe. This is really about making sure that we're battling down the hatches wherever we can. Now, we're talking about encryption, keeping things safe and all that. Part of that is making sure that you stay up to date, getting all the latest, whether it's patches, security fixes, or maybe there's features, kind of like PQC that we've just talked about, making sure that you've always have the latest and greatest. So Tyler, why don't you talk about that? Why don't you talk about what's new with Veeam Updater?
Absolutely. So Veeam Updater is, we've had that for a while with the Veeam software appliance. As you can see here, we are on our Veeam software appliance. You can see, this server is that default Linux mount server. We've got it up to date because we make sure that our lab stays relevant and stays up to date so we can show you the latest stuff. But the big addition to Veeam Updater this year is with the ability to add your VeeamON and your Veeam recovery orchestrator, as well as your Windows-based Veeam backup replication server. So I'm just going to pop over to my Windows server here. And now you can see here, this server is actually my Microsoft Windows server, default Windows mount server. So we can see we've also got that up to date. That is a fantastic addition. So now our Windows servers can be kept up to date, but there's a little bit of a difference between how we work with Veeam Updater on Windows and VeeamON and Veeam Recovery Orchestrator, which are still based on the Windows installations, versus that Veeam software appliance. And Matt, can you outline that difference for our viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. So it really comes down to, being able to make sure that you're getting the updates that you need when you need them and being able to apply them easily enough. So say, hey, you know what? Maybe we've got some components here for your Veeam infrastructure appliance, or not necessarily the appliance, maybe the Veeam software appliance, whatever it is. Being able to centrally manage this and push this out across the fleet. So making sure that not just the VBR server itself stays up to date, but all those other components as well that could be part of the journey. So, in a nutshell, this is really a great quality of life enhancement, and it's being expanded, right? So this is being brought to Windows. This is being brought to VeeamON. This is being brought to Veeam Recovery Orchestrator. At the end of the day, what this really does is it streamlines your patch process. So you'll be able to start enjoying a lot of those, quality of life updates that Veeam software appliance folks have been able to use for a little while now. Take the thought out of patching and just kind of let the thing maintain itself. Make sure that you're always in a good posture, running the latest software, and you're in a secure state. Anything else I missed there, Tyler?
No, you hit the nail on the head. So, check out the Veeam Updater. It's literally my favorite feature that we've brought in with Veeam 13 and now expanded on with 13.1 because it just saves so much time when you're administrating these systems, and the ability for this to even push out the updates to all your other Linux proxy servers, your Linux hardened repositories. That just saves so much time and energy. You're not sitting there trying to figure out when you're going to patch everything. You set the schedule and it just runs. So yeah, I love that there. And we've changed some ports, Matt. Were we speaking about ports?
We are now. Doesn't really matter, right? Port simplification, absolutely. As a former sysadmin, who kind of had to wear multiple hats, managing firewalls, yes, I could do it, but it's nobody's favorite, let alone in large organizations where you have to work across teams, open up tickets, get approvals. Sometimes it could take weeks, if not months, to get ports opened, changed, closed, removed, any of that sort of stuff. So with this release, we're actually seeing a big simplification in ports that are required. So Tyler, why don't you walk us through that?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a lot of different port changes that are going on, so please check our help center. But the one I like to show is if you are that small business operator, you've got that one server running your Veeam backup replication, but you've not been able to segregate that from the rest of your environment. Best practices don't always fly when you're in that small operation. You just can't always afford those different resources. So sometimes you double up stuff and you're running other software on there. You can now manage the port for your Veeam backup replication web UI. You can change that to a different port, and you can change that reverse proxy so it's not listening on port 80 either. So now there's more capabilities and abilities for you to flexibly use your environment the way you desire to use it, right? And continue to use Veeam and love Veeam. But there's a couple other features. Let's keep going. There's two other features that may have flown under your radar, Matt. Why don't you tee us off?
Absolutely. So first off, Veeam Intelligence. This is far from being new to the product, but it's seen, pretty cool upgrade here with this backup admin agent. So this is a very specific agent that will go in there and take a look at your environment. So this goes beyond the basic, how do I set up this feature that pulls from Help Center, which could be useful. But this is much more about taking a look what's in your environment. And for example, it looks like you just ran the capacity report. So being able to say, hey, how much capacity? Help me do some forecasting for my backup repositories. What does that look like? So built right in, lots of cool features here. You could use it for things such as troubleshooting. It could do some basic log analysis. Lots and lots involved here. Now, before I hand it back over to you, Tyler, we've got a great comment here on YouTube that basically comes down to it'd be great if there was an easy way to see the difference between Foundation and Premium, as well as kind of what's going on with the same products within that suite, right? Now, I pitch this over to you because you love that feature comparison doc. I know we don't have the link handy, but I'll give you a moment to give a quick little pitch about that.
Oh, Matt, I love you, Matt. So we've got this feature comparison doc. It's a great document that actually does outline this stuff at a high level. So you can scroll through the doc, see what comes with Foundation, what comes with Advanced, what comes with Premium, and where the different features lie. So, you'll see some Veeam Intelligence features will come with Veeam Universal License Advanced. Some will come with Foundation. It really just depends on the feature you're looking at. So it's a great doc to dive in. And honestly, back when I was a customer, it was something I spent a lot of time in just looking through and going, okay, which edition is right for me. When I was with the service provider and helping my customers out, they would ask, what edition is right for them. So you dig through, find the edition, and then just make sure they got the right features for them. So definitely check out that Veeam feature comparison doc. If you just Google exactly that, you're going to see that different doc. And we have it there for the universal license. We have there for the service providers as well out there. But moving on here, Matt, we've shown here that Veeam Intelligence. The other feature we want to show is that Proxmox instant recovery from Proxmox. That's pretty awesome. We've got this new feature here with our Proxmox integration where you can now do an instant recovery. So let's take a look at a VM here. We've got, where's our between two geese job? It is right here, Matt. This is exactly what I want to show. And here we can do that instant recovery and bam, Proxmox is right there. So you click that, you walk through that wizard a bit. It's, that same wizard you know and love for your instant recovery, but that is now in the web UI as well. So if you're out there trying to find your Proxmox and where to go, we've got it in the web UI. We've obviously got it in that thick client as well, but it's in the web UI if you're looking for it. But there's also replication now for Proxmox. One of my favorite features. I loved implementing this as your disaster recovery plan because you get that quick recovery, right? You get that VM that's already baked, sitting there, waiting to be powered on when you got that replication going. So you can see here, we've got a Proxmox VE replica. We've got our Proxmox virtual machine here, and it is replicating successfully back to a different Proxmox host. So now in the event that we need to power it on, we just jump into our Proxmox, fire it up, or you create a failover plan, whatever works best for you, for your business to be able to get back up and running. So I love that we're adding replication. I love that we're adding that instant recovery. And, stay tuned. I'm sure we will see more as things go on. But Matt, is there an honorary honk you want to give out?
There is absolutely a honorary honk to the application backup repository. If you're not familiar with this, this is a really, really interesting feature that we've implemented, a capability here that will basically allow you to back up really anything that relates to NFS. So what do I mean by that? Say you've got maybe some sort of Kubernetes config, maybe it's a firewall like I was talking about earlier. If you could back that config up to an NFS share, you could point to this application backup repository, and it will actually start backing this up. Now, the value here, big time, is that it brings it into your kind of single source system here. Veeam Data Platform will be able to start managing those backups for you. It writes it to a VPK file, lets you manage it, lets you perform restores, but it's really, really cool. So Tyler, I know you set this up in the lab. Like, any comments around this? Any thoughts around it?
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. So as you can see on my screen here, we've got this application backup repository configured. So I spun up a new Veeam infrastructure appliance just for the application backup repository, and it's a role that is involved with that Veeam hardened repository. So when you're deploying a hardened repository, you can also add disk and make that as part of your application backup repository setup. The idea here is you're going to want to have per application targeting this. So you're not going to want to have, every different thing in your environment targeting one of these repositories. You're going to spin up a different repository for the different application just to make sure that things are separate. And when you're recovering, things recover properly. And you can see here, we got our host, we got our ZFS pool and our mount path here. One thing to note, when you are mounting that on your virtual machines, this is how it is mounted. Let me just show you here. You can jump into our web server itself and you can see how we've configured that. And I'm pointing at my screen, but you can't see that. So I'm just going to pretend you can. But you can see that IP address of that application backup repository and that mount point itself. And then you can configure it with, your NFS version that you need. So it's a great way to get that mount point there, and you just start dropping some files on there, and immediately they're going to get backed up by that application backup repository on the schedule you've set. So great feature, really, straightforward to set up, and then you can also do those backup copy jobs somewhere else as well to maintain that 32110 rule. But Matt, question for the audience. We've covered a lot out here today. We're quickly running out of time. It looks like we are down to the last few minutes of the show. What would you love to hear more of? We've shown you the top features we love. I keep talking about Veeam Updater. You're probably sitting there saying, Tyler, honk about something else already. And I am happy to do that, but just share with me what you like me to honk about, and we will be there, showing you what we can. We'll get the lab configured. Next episode's coming in September, so stay tuned. We will show you whatever you need to see.
Quick shout out to Cayman King on YouTube. Great comment there. Veeam backup replication completely revolutionized the way they back up all their servers. Right, their life would be a nightmare if the software did not exist. Man, do I feel that in my bones. Right, being someone who has been in that position before. Back in the day, VBR was a thing that let me sleep at night. I know that's a bit of a cliche, but just knowing that I could trust what was there. And just kind of shifting gears back to 13.1, one thing that we just kind of completely glazed over, but the keen-eyed viewer would notice this. The web UI has seen a massive upgrade with regards to what's in there. It's still evolving. It's not, complete feature parity with the thick client, but there's going to be a lot of happy folks out there as they start to see all these new things that they could start performing within the web UI. Now, Tyler, let's switch gears here. We talked about one handpicked collection of features for VCSPs. Take it away. I know this is near and dear to your heart.
Absolutely. So, Matt, I've said before, I've worked for a couple different service providers. There's always features that, this is where I cut my teeth with Veeam. So I always love to see additions to what we can bring up for our service providers out there. And 13.1 is jam-packed with them. We've got the ability to restore from tenant encrypted backups. And that one's big. And I'll tell you why it's big, Matt, because when customers are, sending a service provider their backups, the service provider needs to be able to recover them safely back to the service provider environment. That's often why you want to go to a cloud environment. You want to be able to do that recovery. Well, now you can share your encryption key in a secure manner with that service provider, that trusted partner that you have to be able to offer you maybe that sovereignty that you need, or maybe just that offsite site to cut your initial costs down so you're not building in a second data center just to host. So you can choose what you want to share. This isn't forced on you. You choose, but it is a one-way operation. So just make sure you're not going and deciding to, switch the PowerPoint slide mid-presentation, but make sure you're not selecting the wrong choice and then trying to claw that back, right? We've also, with that now, also becomes the ability to scan tenant backups. Now, why are these closely coupled? Because if you cannot talk to that encrypted backup, if the service provider can't see the data, they can't scan it. So you can scan that backup data if it's unencrypted, but if it's encrypted and you've shared that key, that service provider can now offer that malware as a service scanning for you to make sure that they're able to recover your backups in a clean way. So if the worst happens, you're getting recovered clean. And then we also have that expanded hypervisor restore option. So this is big for our service providers. A lot of them have been evaluating their hypervisor choices of late, whether they've wanted to or not. There's a lot of reevaluation going on. So now you're able to recover those backups, whatever the source was, back to these different hypervisors in your tenancy. So service providers, I'm talking directly to you guys. You have the ability to recover those backups, continue to offer your backup as a service offering through Veeam, and make sure that your customers stay protected and you can recover them. So it's a huge, huge benefit there. So Matt, I've briefly jumped to the next screen here. We also had a What's New webinar, and I got a little confused earlier. This is the one that you were on.
That's right. Myself and Emily Tejas, we went through jam-packed 55 minutes of really just scratching the surface of what's new in 13.1. I mean, it took us 55 minutes and we barely scratched the surface, let alone what we've done here today. I feel like there's just so much more that we could be talking about. Now, kind of tying things together, going back that feature comparison comment earlier, Brohodio, who posted that comment, actually provided some more context around it, that they use PowerShell scripts today to handle a lot of the DR failovers, and they were really curious how VDP could help improve things. Well, you know what? Perfect example, friend of the show, Emily Tejas, VRO, that's her jam. I mean, maybe it's something we consider for a future episode, some of the things that we could do with this. But at the end of the day, that's one of its specialties. Veeam Recovery Orchestrator lets you build orchestrated, automated plans. You can include customized scripts as part of that, restore to different locations, cross hypervisor, all that stuff. So if that's something that's of interest to the folks watching, make sure that you let us know, and we'll see about doing a future show on that. So we've talked a lot about 13.1. Right? Now, how do you actually get to 13.1? What does that upgrade path look like? Some folks might think it's a little bit complicated and whatnot, but Tyler, what are you showing us here?
Absolutely. So Matt, this is something I put together here to show and help our customers out there find all the relevant information. I mean, we've talked lots about, we've sat in that chair. We've dug through the different documents. We've checked the different compatibility matrices. We've done all that stuff to try to see, okay, so the new version's out. What does that mean for me? What do I have to do there? So this is where upgradebrief.com comes from. We have it linked in our best practices as well in our help center. So you can now check this and see what version you're on. So let's select the version you're on. Let's say we're on a 12.3 build. What does that mean for me? Is there any features that we need to highlight? Is there any concerns around the life cycle? As we can see, end of fix in November 2025, end of support. So we're not going to see any more security fixes after 2027. So you're on that clock. You need to know when to upgrade, and you can get that executive summary. So if you're trying to validate this and talk to your executive team and say, hey guys, this is why we need to update, you have that extra info. And then there's one thing I want to bring out here with the upgrade path itself. We show you where you can jump from and to, so you know if you have to do a second jump into a version in between. But there's also, we talk about the Windows to VSA conversion. Matt, I know this one is near and dear to your heart. Why don't you talk a little bit about that for us?
Absolutely. I will try and keep it short and succinct since we are running so far over on time. But KB 4800, memorize IKB. This is your source of truth when it comes to understanding what does it actually look like to move from a Windows-based VBR installation to the Veeam software appliance. As it is today, you'll want to make sure that you perform that migration, that conversion before upgrading to 13.1, right? So that's important to clarify. Right now, this conversion process is not supported on 13.1. So the path would be to go through here, read the KB, understand the KB, make sure that you know all the caveats, make sure that you understand what limitations might be. For example, if you're using Google Cloud plugin, that's not actually supported on the VSA. So you won't be able to perform that. So if you do find that you're in a situation where you are fine, you meet all the criteria, you can go ahead, you can open up a support ticket, and support can help you migrate your instance from 13.0.1 or 13.0.2 or 13.0.3 to the VSA, at which point you can upgrade to 13.1. So I know that's a little long-winded, but once again, KB 4800 has all of the information that you need. Go through there, read it, understand it, and just know that support is also there to help you as well. So that's a lot, right? There's lots that we could talk about here all day long, but we do have a time limit. As much as we love spending time with all of you, answering the questions, as many as we can. So Tyler, what do we have up here on the screen right now?
Absolutely. So we're talking about the VeeamON 26 global launch virtual event. So this is a great event there that you can see, tune in live from where you're at, see all the different events that are going on there. And I think we've got a bit of a video here to show you about that. So I'll pass it over to our producers, cue that up. Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot. If you've never been to a VeeamON virtual event before, you can go there, you register, watch the sessions, basically enjoy the show. But right now we've got the VeeamON tours going on as well. So if you've never been to a VeeamON tour, think of it as like a mini VeeamON, being able to go there, see sessions, talk to folks, talk to whether it's SEs, account managers, presenters, and actually get a gist of what's new, what's exciting, as well as a quick tip, a quick glance at, hey, these are things I should be looking at, and maybe a quick snippet as to things that are coming down the pipe. So if you have a VeeamON tour coming to your town, make sure you sign up. It's well worth attending. Fantastic shows. And actually ties in nicely. Tyler, where can folks find us?
Absolutely, Matt. So we've got this site here, 2geese.com, aptly named for our honking personas here. So you can find the live replays, all the Between Two Geese episodes we have done, you can find on this site. You can also find where we are at next. So please check us out. Matt is going to be at the Veeam User Group in Montreal coming up in September. Those are great events. If you don't know what a Veeam User Group is, it is an area for you and like-minded individuals to get together and just talk tech, talk the nerd stuff that I love to chat about, and hear from experts such as Matt, and he will honk at you and it will be lovely. So you can check us out, find those events, register live right there. I think that's all they are going to let us talk to today. Matt, do you got any closing thoughts?
Absolutely. Leave a comment, whether it's here, YouTube, X, wherever else you might be seeing this. We do our best to monitor those. If there's something that you want to see for a future episode, let us know. We will be back September 10th with another episode. So get those slots in early and we'll see what we could bake into the show. But aside from that, thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Tyler, for a phenomenal job. As always, any closing honks from you?
Honk. Thank you all. See you next time.